Hello, this is Rebirth the Legend here with a replay
my
analysis.
lead.
Actually, I shouldn't say a replay analysis. I should say a tutorial on playing Antimage in the new patch. Now, I have not made a video on how to play Antimage since before 7.0, so as many of you guessed, now that if you ever watched any of my videos, you will know that I used to heavily advocate getting lots and lots of stats on Antimage, which is no longer an option. So, between no longer having stats AM as an option and the change to the jungle where instead of spawning every every minute, it spawns every 2 minutes on the odd minutes, so 1, 3, and 5 instead of 1, 2, 3, you know? It actually changes the way you play Anti-Mage a lot. There's a bigger focus on dominating your lane now. Because, so now instead of going like 1, 1, 1 and getting stats, you have to choose to level an ability. Ability you almost always want to get is going to be Mana Break first, and then your Blink Max, and you always still just leave Spell Shield at 1. So the reason I want to make this video is to show how you should play pretty much any lane, and Weaver's probably one of the more, I shouldn't say difficult lanes. It's going to be very, very hard for you to kill.
Who's that blowing the horn?
Weaver, pretty much.
Somebody stop blowing that horn.
But you can make it so you can minimize how much you can get from them. So in this game, we have a defensive tri-lane from, I'd say, the 0 to maybe 4 minute mark. And it's a horrible defensive tri-lane. They fail to zone out the Weaver. He's actually out-leveling me when they leave. And we don't kill him once, and they feed him. They feed the Weaver. So while the Weaver doesn't get any creeps, he gets full experience while I'm sharing experience, and gets a kill, which is equivalent to like 6 creeps or so. I don't remember if it was first one or not. So we'll speed this up right here, and we'll get to the fun stuff. So here it kind of looks like they're zoning him, but they don't have sentries, or at least they didn't put it down. They have a sentry? No, they don't have a sentry. So the Weaver is able to just chill into this tree line right here, and they're not like actively like really looking for him or finding him. And now I find him here. He's able to run around and just be like a pain in the butt, and you like soak this experience. And generally you want as much experience as you can as I am, because the more experience you have, the sooner you can start effectively jungling or mixing in jungle rotations into your farm. You don't even need to wait till Battle Fury.
Oh man, first blood.
This is mainly to focus. This video is mainly to focus on
all along.
how to play your lane aggressively as an anti-mage, which people usually think is like an AFK farm here. You don't do anything, but one of the things you can do is you can dominate the huge majority of 1v1 lanes. And I mean like any hero that can reasonably be played as an offlaner, AM should be able to dominate to some degree.
The prize is mine.
This is not a tutorial on lasting, in case you didn't notice. By the way, I'm missing some stupid creeps. That actually really pissed me off. For those viewers who are watching, I was activating a salve, and I didn't know he was sitting in the tree line, and he saw it and fucking popped it after like 150 health. So we don't really need to watch this part. We'll get to about the 4.5 minute mark. So there we go. You see my Vengeful Spirit dies Train War Weaver. I probably should have tried to get there sooner, but that's also okay. One thing that does make this a little harder is shrines, but it kind of gets balanced out. Like as an AM, your goal when laning should be to make sure that the enemy offlaner, like let's say if they have like a Clockwork or a Weaver or like a Mirana. Your goal should be, if they want to sit in the offlane and soak experience, they don't provide value to their team. So like one of the drawbacks to having an anti-mage, for a second. So one of the drawbacks to having an anti-mage on your team is that he doesn't really want to contribute to fights early. The most I really want to contribute is TPing to a fight and throwing out a mana void and maybe blinking on someone for like a last hit. And get maybe stealing a kill or two. That's really the most you... Oh, I gotta turn this volume down before I forget. So that's really the most you want to contribute to a team fight. So generally the idea is that your team's fighting 4v5. So what you can do to actually mitigate your team fighting 4v5 is make it so the enemy offlaner can't come to the fight. So if it's a Weaver, if the Weaver has no mana, he can go to the fight and he might be able to contribute some right clicks, but he can't Sakuchi and can't run around and just be a huge pain in the ass in the fight. A Mirana, let's say you're laning against an enemy offline Mirana, she can, if she has the mana to TP to a fight, she might get off one arrow, but she can't get like a Starstorm combo, because your goal should be to literally constantly keep the enemy offlaner at 0 mana. Now, if they have HP, whatever, that doesn't really matter. When you have a Ring of Health and a Poor Man's Shield, you can pretty much trade with almost any single hero. The same thing also goes for like a Clinks. So those are like 3 offlaners I think many people would struggle with because they don't play aggro enough on them. So that'd be like Clinks, Mirana, and Weaver. Oh, and Wind Ranger. You want to play super aggressive on those heroes where anytime they show in the lane and you think they're alone, which if you have a lane ward up, you should be confident they are alone. If you get smoked on, you know, shit happens. You have to hope for your map awareness and be suspicious when there's time to be suspicious. Chances are if they're walking up in the lane, they're alone though. But the way you combat those heroes is you play super aggressive in the lane and take all their mana. That way they cannot show up to fights and they cannot do anything. You can keep them in the lane, they can get experience, but now it's a 4-on-4 with your team where your team has a better chance in dealing with like a 4v5. A Tidehunter is another example where if he can't TP to a fight in Ravage, like what does he do for a team, you know? So if that's another hero that wants to sit in the lane, you just take all their mana and endure with it. So anyway, the point I was meaning to get to before I ramble for too long is that your goal as an anti-mage should be to make it so the enemy offlaner or whoever wants to stay in the offlane has a similar mid-game impact to you. And you do that through making sure that if they want to TP to fights, they won't have mana to TP, or they won't have mana to really use their full spells or keep using spells in a team fight. Is it realistic to constantly keep someone at 0 mana? It can be difficult, and particularly with shrines where they can go up and shrine, you can't necessarily always do that, but when you're leveling your mana break, one swipe is going to take... Each swipe takes away a Sakuchi from a Weaver, right? Each swipe takes away... most of a Ghost Walk or a bunch of Searing Arrows hits. You guys get you get the point. It takes away a lot. We're not going to watch this whole game, by the way. I'm only going to go over the first 10-12 minutes because this is mainly meant to focus on dominating your lane. And that's about it. So we'll fast forward. It's going to kick up at about 4:30. So that's when the Weaver should show back up to lane. Alright, he's going to show back up to lane now, so we'll watch that in 2x. And I'll explain why I'm doing everything I'm doing. So, even at the cost of a creep, I see the Weaver show back up. I'll ignore the creeps and I'll prioritize hitting him. At that point, there was no risk of me losing CS. But so Weaver is safe in the lane when he can Sakuchi away as a defensive ability. If I'm actively trying to get swipes off it, and like I'm looking for him right now, like as soon as we're going to go back and watch that slower. So I can really explain to you what I was doing there. So I swipe at him, I go for a creep, he Sakuchis through me, right? And I know he has to show up somewhere near me. Did I not go back far enough? I feel like that's not what I was looking for. So when he Sakuchis, you know he has to show up somewhere near you. So you jump on him and start swiping away. Here, now look at this. Like right now, I feel like did I not go back? Okay, we missed something that I was really trying to point out here. Maybe 10 seconds doesn't mean as much as I thought it did. He attacks me, I walk over, and I just try and keep getting those auto attacks on him. Because if he can't Sakuchi away from me, he's going to be more scared to walk up and harass. Because he knows, like, he can feel in this lane, like, every time I see him, I'm going after him. Like, if it means that I might miss a creep and I get, like, 1 or 2 auto attacks off on him, I might be willing to make that trade just because it means Weaver can't go help my team. Or help his team if my team chooses to take a team fight. And that's really what you want to focus on here. And my team starts getting shreked. And imagine if they start getting ruined in this game. See, I'm kind of getting a little out-traded in the right clicks right now because he has an armor down item. But I have a poor man's shield. But notice, like, I have some tangos left. Let's look at his items. He has no regen left. No mana right now. Come on. He has very little mana. Basically no regen, and once I drew out his mana, there's nothing he can do. Look, I'm full health, and he's got really nothing. He lost another auto attack to me because he showed up in lane. And usually he's not going to be quick enough to and there's a fade time where if you blink on him, you're almost guaranteed to get 1 hit, and you'll probably even get 2. The only way you're not going to get it is if he predicts your blink. And if he starts trying to predict it and he predicts wrong, then he's wasting mana too. So when you're talking about someone like a Clinks, a Weaver, or Mirana, who have like Leap and Viz, every time you force them to use one of those abilities defensively, takes away from their ability to be aggressive in the lane. And since you're an AM, you're gonna outtrade anyone in right clicks. So he doesn't want to do this. Like he's trading fairly well, but he's wasted a shrine, and like I haven't used any shrine, and I'm creeping totally fine. Shit, I meant to hold up the last hits. So sorry, I also meant to point this out, but I looked at the replay beforehand just to check this. I think I had 33 creeps at 5 minutes, and the Weaver had 1. So it's been 3 minutes, and I've gotten 21 creeps, and the Weaver's only gotten 10, and I've gotten probably, I think, 5 denies during that time as well. So in a 1v1 matchup where the Weaver's pretty much on par with experience, has not really been shut down, he's losing a 2-to-1 trade against me. He's losing a 2-to-1 trade against me, and when he finally shows up to a fight, look at this, he's got maybe... If you were to TP to a fight right now, he's got 2 Sakuchis in him, right? TP's going to cost you 75 mana. That'll bring you down to 150. That's only 2 Sakuchis. It's 2.5 Sakuchis. And if he wants to use Swarm, he's got 1 Swarm and a Sakuchi. That's it. So a Weaver who's just running around, swarming through people, getting a lot of attack, weaving in and out of fight. This Weaver can't do it. He can't even get off a Sakuchi and his ult, right? Okay, never mind. Math failure. He can do that. Actually, no. If he TPs, he can't. Right? Because TPs are 75 mana. So... if he TPs, he can't get off. He can't use his full arsenal of abilities, and that's a huge benefit. And you can literally do it to any offlaner, like a Clockwork. I've had Clockwork too. A Clockwork who's against an Antimage should get destroyed in lane, and if his goal should just be to get level 6 or 7 and then leave the lane and go try and get stuff elsewhere. Because if he shows up to that lane, he's not going to be able to actually go to a fight and contribute with his hook. And a Clockwork's all about his mid game, and if he actually comes to lane to try and get more experience, like, oh, people are giving me free experience, I'll take that free experience. It's like, no, that's not your purpose. You'll just lose all your mana, and then when there's finally a fight where you could try and get a pick off, you won't even be able to afford a freaking rocket flare. But I feel like I've probably driven that point into the ground, right? So I guess I probably want to try and look at more of the nuanced stuff that's happening here. So notice in between these creep waves, I'm trying to jungle these camps. In the previous patch, the difference here would be that I put a bigger emphasis on pushing the wave and less emphasis on maybe harassing the Weaver, but now I think it's very, very important to completely dominate the Weaver. Killing this camp would have cost me a lot of HP, which would have hurt my ability to play aggressive in the lane. So that's why I told the Invoker to come kill it with me, just because I didn't want to sacrifice the HP. Do we kill him here? We might kill him. No, the Avenge is an idiot. I don't think we kill him. I don't want to lose the HP. That would hurt my... I actually did not get tree armor this whole time until right now. I didn't even notice that. Worst teammates ever. Nah, I think he was using it to defend towers and other people. It definitely wasn't on me, though. At this point, they start moving into my lane, but if we just reflect back on like the last 4 minutes, the Weaver's gotten 15 creeps in the last 4 minutes. I've gotten 31 creeps. So I've over doubled the amount of creeps he's gotten, and I think I've gotten like 5 denies, and he's gotten like 1. And I've made it so he can't show up to fight. So people are rotating to his lane instead of like him rotating to other lanes. And they're rotating here to shut me down. And he does that under a ward and gets chain stunned and killed. That's hilarious. I forgot about that. And I got the kill, which is super nice. This isn't like a completely free lane. I think I'll probably just look at like a 15-minute Battle Fury in this game or something like that. But by no means is that like a completely free lane where I'm getting max farm. If I was getting max farm, I hate that I can't. Gotta take off the free camera. If I was getting absolute free farm, these 3 camps would be farmed out constantly, and probably even this camp, and I'd probably be using that shrine too. But I've been sticking around this area and only really farming maybe 1 or 2 of those camps because there's such a huge focus on making sure that Weaver can't do anything. The Weaver has a fairly underwhelming game. Let's skip forward. Let's go to 18. Do I have a Battle Fury now? I got a Battle Fury of Vlad's by 18 minutes, so it's a relatively decent game considering that it was a 1v1 lane where I focused on shutting people down. We're actually getting raxed right now, if I remember it. Yeah, we get raxed. We get raxed at 18 minutes, and I'm yelling. I won't lie, yelled at my team a little bit for this one. Like, how are you all so incompetent? But I love them. That's why I play with them. Yeah, so that's the gist of it. You wanna aggressively blink on the enemy laners and take away their mana, and you want to focus on doing it. You don't want to just sit there and creep and occasionally trade right clicks. You want to aggressively go after taking their mana, because one, it's going to be annoying for them, and it's going to make it so they can harass you less, particularly if they're a hero with an escape or something, or like tied with an anchor smash. You take away his ability to anchor smash, he's not going to bother you anymore. But anyway, if you take away the ability to use their mana that they need to use abilities, then they can't use abilities. It's pretty straightforward. It's a weird build. And then the second point is that by playing aggressive on enemy laners, by constantly blinking and taking their mana, you take away their ability to contribute to the early, or the post laning phase, or I should say the early and mid game of their team, because they won't have mana to TP and use, at the very least, their full arsenal of spells. Like we went over with the Weaver, where he couldn't, if he TP'd at the time I pointed out, he wouldn't have mana for Sakuchi and ult. That's how much we mana broke him down. And Weaver, who can't do that, is just gonna become a liability, right? Because he's not, like, Weaver's super annoying because of how slippery he is and the amount of damage he can do, like a protracted team fight where he can keep using his abilities. And if you take away his ability to use his abilities, then he's not contributing to that team. And that can go for, like, literally any offlaner. Like, any common offlaner, I should say. Undying gets absolutely destroyed by Antimage because he's all about that mid game too. Clockwork gets destroyed, Tide gets destroyed. Tide's a little more difficult because he can out-trade you with right clicks. And Anchor Smash hurts a lot because it's physical. But you just have to play it smart. And honestly, now that stats is out of favor, and you have mana break where you're taking 64 a swipe instead of 28, you get destroyed. The problem is you just can't, because of Kraken Shell, once you take his mana, all his mana away, he's out trading you on the right clicks. But you just have to be careful about that. It's obviously not worth rushing the game mode. Anyway, that pretty much concludes like this video and what we're going to go about. A very important phone call I got to pick up, so thanks for watching. What up, bro?